It began on a snowy night in Canton, Massachusetts. A night that would fracture a community, spark national outrage, and put a woman on trial not just in court, but on social media. Karen Redd, a finance professor, is accused of killing her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, by backing her SUV into him and leaving him to die. But what seems like a tragic accident on the surface quickly spirals into something much darker and far more complicated. John O'Keefe's body was found on the front lawn of a fellow officer's home. He was bruised, bleeding, and already dead. The official story? Karen dropped him off after a night of drinking and then struck him while making a three-point turn. The prosecution claims it was intentional. But from the start, something about that narrative didn't sit right with a growing number of people. Least of all, Karen herself. Karen maintains her innocence, claiming she's being framed, railroaded by a tight-knit network of police officers desperate to protect one of their own. Her supporters say this isn't just a trial, it's a cover-up. They point to overlooked evidence, missing surveillance footage, and the refusal to test certain samples for DNA. In their view, this case isn't about what Karen did, but what the system is trying to hide. As the media frenzy escalated, Karen's defense team launched an aggressive counterattack, accusing investigators of manipulating the scene, destroying key evidence, and obstructing the truth. One of their biggest claims? That John O'Keefe wasn't even outside when he died, but was instead killed inside the house he was supposedly visiting that night, then dragged into the yard, lifeless, dumped. It wasn't long before this courtroom drama spilled onto TikTok, YouTube, and Reddit. Internet sleuths dissected autopsy reports, location data, and even snow depth in the yard. Hashtags like DACA Free Karen Reed and Justice for John began trending. Podcasts picked it up. Live streams analyzed every minute of the hearings. In a matter of months, the trial became a spectacle, a case study in how public opinion can be weaponized. The details only grew more disturbing. Reports surfaced that John had old injuries inconsistent with a hit-and-run. There were gashes to his arm, scratches on his face, and blunt trauma to the back of his head. And then there was the timing. If Karen dropped him off at 12:30 a.m., why did his Apple Watch stop recording steps at 12:24? Who was he really with in his final minutes? Karen's own phone data became a focal point. Her texts, her calls, her GPS location. Prosecutors used them to paint a picture of guilt, saying she was drunk, jealous, spiraling. But the defense pointed out crucial gaps in the timeline and errors in how that data was collected. One misstep could change everything. And then came the turning point: the forensic reports. Experts for the defense claimed the damage to Karen's SUV didn't match a human impact. There was no blood, no hair, no skin. And the supposed taillight fragments near the body? Not consistent with her vehicle, they argued. If she didn't hit him, who did? All eyes are now on the retrial, where Karen Reed faces second-degree murder charges. But this time, the public is watching more closely than ever. With every new piece of testimony, the courtroom fills not just with reporters, but with protesters and counter-protesters, each side convinced they're witnessing either a gross injustice or a masterclass in gaslighting. And for Karen, this isn't just about clearing her name. It's about survival. Because if she's found guilty, she could spend the rest of her life in prison. If she's innocent, then someone else is walking free, and the system meant to protect justice may be the one hiding it. As the retrial begins, the courtroom feels less like a hall of justice and more like a battleground. On one side, Karen sits behind the defense table, her life hanging in the balance. On the other, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, presenting a narrative of betrayal and violence. But in between lies a tangled mess of evidence, contradictions, and unanswered questions. One of the most disturbing pieces of evidence? A handwritten note found in Karen's home. Torn, smudged, and incomplete. The prosecution says it was a confession. Her defense says it was a draft of a letter she never intended to send. One filled with frustration and despair after months of online harassment and media attacks. In court, every word is dissected, every pause magnified. The medical examiner's report adds another layer of confusion. Multiple injuries that don't align with a simple vehicle collision. Hemorrhaging in the eyes, facial abrasions, and what appears to be pressure-related trauma. These aren't the classic signs of a hit and run. They're more consistent with a physical assault, perhaps even strangulation, the defense suggests. Yet despite these alarming red flags, investigators refuse to treat the house where John was last seen as a crime scene. No luminol tests, no forensic sweep. Why? The home belongs to another Boston police officer. And that's the chilling part, because if Karen's right, and this was an inside job, then the people investigating the case are the same ones who may have something to hide. Karen's defense continues to chip away at the narrative. They present GPS timestamps, show inconsistencies in police statements, and raise doubt after doubt. But the jury? They're not just hearing a story. They're watching a war play out, one that challenges everything they thought they knew about authority, truth, and loyalty. Outside the courthouse, crowds grow louder. Supporters hold signs calling for justice, on both sides. The media scrambles for interviews, and influencers stream live reactions to each witness. The line between fact and speculation blurs, and the case becomes something far greater than a single trial. It becomes a symbol of the deep mistrust between citizens and the institutions sworn to protect them. And through it all, Karen Reed remains defiant. Her voice cracks at times, but she stands firm. "I loved John," she tells the jury. "I would never hurt him." But love doesn't guarantee innocence. And in this case, innocence doesn't guarantee justice. As closing arguments approach, the stakes are higher than ever. A guilty verdict means Karen could face decades behind bars. An acquittal could unleash a storm of lawsuits, internal investigations, and calls for massive reform. Either way, the system won't walk away clean. This isn't just a whodunit, it's a mirror. A story that forces us to ask who we believe and why. Is Karen Reed a manipulative killer hiding behind a media campaign? Or is she the scapegoat in one of the most elaborate police cover-ups in recent memory? And until the jury delivers its verdict, the world waits. Watching, debating, questioning everything.